FPL Gameweek 18. Who should we be selling? Who should we be buying? We have lots of options. Bruno's almost certainly going to be out for a few game weeks. We don't know for sure, but everyone's assuming that he is. Lots of managers bringing Ekitike. There's plenty of managers that have used all their transfers up and are now wanting to do moves. So I've seen online managers either taking hits this game week or saying they're going to be taking hits. What is it we should be doing? In this video series, I look at the popular players, and the rationale is it's the highly owned players around your rank that do well and you don't own that are going to hurt your rank. If a lowly owned player does well and you don't own them, it really doesn't matter. It's not going to affect you. If a highly owned player does awful and you don't own them, that's good because you saved a position. So that's why I like to consider who are the highly owned players. Now, you're not going to win the whole thing just by having highly owned players, but you should do all right, which means you'll do okay in your mini leagues. Certainly, if you concentrate on the highly owned players, you should be able to finish in the top 5% globally, which should kind of be all right. I'm recording this on Wednesday, which is Christmas Eve, and we've got the big Christmas dinner in this house in like 2 or 3 hours time, because that's the way we've been doing it for years. It works out really well, but I need to get cracking. All right, what am I doing? I'm looking at the players. Let's have a look. Starting with the activity in the market. This looks at the net transfers. That's the number of managers who have bought a player, take away the number of managers that have sold a particular player. So green is net transfer in, red is net transfer out. And Fernandes, for example, he's the most transferred out at 765,000. But before he played his game, he was actually quite highly transferred in, which is interesting. Fancy buying a player before he actually played. Then he got injured, went off at half time. That's it. So his transfers out are actually more than 765,000, but that's his net transfers out. So that he's a midfielder, massively transferred out. What midfielders are coming in? Well, we have Rodgers coming in. Nearly 600,000 have brought him in. And then Rice, nearly 200,000. And before the Arsenal game, Rice was slightly down on transfers. And certainly last game week, Rice was slightly down. But now, because he got an 11-pointer, suddenly everyone wants to bring him in. And then some people are bringing in Kuna for 223,000. So a lot of content managers are saying bring in Kuna. He's the one that they're going to be bringing in. But the ecosystem, the game as a whole, are massively favouring Rodgers. So we'll be looking at all of these. Regarding most bought-in player overall, it's Ekitike. Now, a big reason for this, apart from he scored, I think, 5 goals in the last 3 game weeks, is Isak is out with a broken leg. So Isak's out for a long time. Salah's over playing AFCON. So Ekitike's minutes are expected to be very good, and he's got 2 very easy fixtures coming up. So how do you get in Ekitike? The most popular forward being sold is Thiago. 602,000 managers so far have sold him. And then less than that, down here we have Mateta, 190,000 have sold him. Now going to look at the estimated ownership around my rank, which is 400,000, which is in the top 3.1%. And the reason I've got this chart is it helps me to visualize how much damage will these people do if I don't own them. So we have on the x-axis the ownership percent, and effectively Haaland is owned by everyone at my rank. So anyone who doesn't captain him, if he does well, that's going to hurt their rank unless their captain outscores Haaland. If you don't own Haaland and he does well, that's going to really hurt your rank. And then other forwards, we have Thiago's currently just below 60% and falling. And then third most popular is Ekitike at a little over 40%, and he's rising. And I suspect come the weekend at my rank, Ekitike will be over 50% and Thiago will be below 50%. Meaning Ekitike and Haaland are going to be the most important forwards at my rank. If I don't own those two and they do well, that's obviously going to be hurting me. And the same for you. We don't know if Ekitike will do well, but the assumption is he will. You want to be getting him if you can. And then the second most popular player in the game and the most popular midfielder overall is Foden at over 80%. So you want to be owning him if you can, because if he does well and you don't own him, hurts your rank. Then we have Semenyo around 53%, slightly going up. Saka's around 50%. Then we've got Wilson at 46.6%, but he got a knock in the last game. He did play on, We've been told by the manager he's probably all right, but we don't know for sure, I guess. Rodgers, he's up to 40% now. We have Rice at 35, and Fernandes, of course, is falling. Currently around 30%. That's going to be getting a lot lower. For the defenders, we got Timber at over 50%. I've not had Timber all season, so on the odd occasion he does well, and he's not had many of those recently. That does hurt my rank. We have Gahey just below the 50% mark. He, of course, scored last night in the Carabao Cup. However, defender here, O'Reilly at 33%, and there's a whole cluster here of 5, which are Virgil van Dijk, Chalobah, Senesi, Anderson, and Van de Ven. If any of those do well and you don't own them, it's going to be a little bit annoying, but it's not going to kill your rank. Whereas somebody up here like Timber, if he gets an 11-pointer and you don't own him, that's really going to be quite annoying. And then for the keepers, we've got Raya up here at 47.3%. The next most popular is down here, that's Sanchez at 14.3%. So the keepers that you don't own aren't really going to hurt your rank unless it's Raya and he gets a really good score. But most game weeks when Raya does get a return, it tends to be 6. Last game week, he did manage to get 7. We're now going to look at the players, starting with the keepers. As I say every week, it doesn't matter too much which keeper you've got. As long as they're playing, that's good enough. If you've got a lot of free transfers or you're wildcarding, that's the time to think about changing your keeper. So Raya's the most popular. Transfer market's pretty flat, down just 4,000 at the moment. 3 of the next 4 are at home, Brighton, Villa, Liverpool. The other games away to Bournemouth. Any of those realistically could be a clean sheet. Any of those he could let in goals. So if I was wildcarding now, I definitely wouldn't be bringing him in. Partly because he's too expensive, but also I'd want other Arsenal players. But if I had him, and I do have him, I'm comfortable with that. I can just keep him. He's not a problem. So Sanchez, in a few game weeks' time, Chelsea have some nice fixtures. The immediate fixture run, Villa, they're doing well at the moment. Then we have Bournemouth, who do score, away to Man City, away to Fulham. So a reasonable chance of no clean sheets in the next 4, possibly 1 there. But he's only 4.9, which isn't too much for a premium keeper. And in a few game weeks' time, Chelsea do have a nice fixture run, so he will get popular there. At the moment, he's just at minus 1,000 net transfers, though. Roof's doing very well at the moment, 4.8 million. He's got Leeds, then Man City at home, not so good, then Tottenham, Brentford, but Sunderland defensively are quite solid. He's actually quite a good keeper to have, and he's 1.2 cheaper than Rare, of course. No problem having him. Kelleher's the best at 4.5 million at the moment. His fixtures are quite nice. Donnarumma, I think he's on 4 yellow cards, so definitely don't go buying him, because if he gets a yellow in one of the next 2 game weeks, he's going to be missing a game. Then Pickford, I always like Pickford, as you'll know if you watch these videos, as in he's a fun wind-up merchant to be watching on the pitch. 5.5 million, Burnley, Forest, Brentford, Wolves, that could be 4 clean sheets there. Wouldn't go switching to him. If I was wildcarding, I'd be right to have Pickford, but Sanchez is a bit cheaper, and over the next 10 game weeks, Sanchez may outscore Pickford, but I suspect it's going to be quite close. Then we have Petrovic, 4.5. Henderson for Bruggen, Dubravka. Dubravka's a banker. He's the cheapest playing keeper at 4 million. For Bruggen, did very well last game week. He's got away to Arsenal next. Then he's got West Ham, Burnley, which is quite nice. And he's away to Man City. So I wouldn't be buying for Bruggen. But if he's the one you've got, and you've got Dubravka, and you're switching them around, that's kind of all right. For each playing position, I show at least 10 players. That's why we've got the likes of De Bruyne here. But he's very lowly owned. He's not really going to affect your rank. The only real movement going on with the keepers is Roos has been brought in by 54,000 net transfers so far. For the defenders, Timber's the most important, 6.5 million. And we don't know when Gabriel's back. Remote chance this game week, but probably not. But next game week's possible. By the game week after that, it's looking really quite likely. He is going to be back soon. So some people who've got Timber are simply going to switch over to Gabriel, sell Timber, buy Gabriel, and Timber's now more expensive than Gabriel, so they can probably manage to do that all right. There's not a world where I'd be bringing in Timber at the moment, because I would be wanting Gabriel, and I wouldn't want Timber and Gabriel long term. So I've managed all this time without him, and I've been very fortunate. They've only had 2 clean sheets, I think, in that time. But if you've got him, absolutely worth keeping for now. He's been brought in by 47,000. I guess if I was wildcarding, I may bring him in if I had lots of free transfers too. If I didn't have lots of free transfers, I probably wouldn't be bringing him in. Then Gahey, he continues just to keep getting nice returns. And he's high enough owned that he's going to be annoying if he does well and you don't own him. So worth having. I've got him. I think he's a good player to have. O'Reilly's up by a net of 45,000. He's a good player. He seems to be getting good minutes. He's got some attacking potential, some clean sheet potential. Absolutely worth having. Virgil van Dijk, the next 2 are very good at home to Wolves and Leeds, then away to Fulham. So possibly on a wild card I'd bring him in. I wouldn't be spending transfers to bring him in though, and I would just accept, okay, he's got a reasonable chance of 2 clean sheets, but I would not be wasting a transfer bringing in Virgil van Dijk. But if you've got him, he's a very good player to have just now. Senesi, he keeps getting defensive contributions. Sometimes he's going to get a clean sheet. If you've got him, he's worth having because he can damage you if you don't own him, and he does well. So Chalobah, I wouldn't be bringing him in. 57,000 managers have brought him in. That's net 57,000. But they're playing Villa, who are a very good side, then Bournemouth, then they've got Man City. They do have a nice fixture run coming up, but I wouldn't be buying him just now. If you're wildcarding, he's okay to buy. Anderson, he ticks along nicely. West Ham and Palace next 2, albeit away, they're okay. He's often going to be getting you 4 points, sometimes 3, sometimes 5, occasionally a bit more than that. Van de Ven, he was hugely popular. He's been dumped by a net of 88,000. So Spurs have some issues. Frank's not been sacked yet. Online, it looks like some people are thinking he's going to go soon. Others thinking they're going to be sticking with him. There does seem to be issues within the team, to be fair. Van de Ven is a very good player, but he can't carry the whole team. So if you've got him, he is quite cheap. He's all right to be having. Sometimes he'll be on your bench. There's not a world where I'd be bringing him in at the moment, though. And he's fine to move on if you've got him and you want to. So Richards, he went off last night in the game. He's a doubt for this weekend. So if I had him and I had the transfers, I'd be selling him. Obviously, don't go buying him now. If you've not got 3 decent defenders, it's probably worth taking a hit to move him on if he's one of your defenders, I'd say. Because at the moment, he's looking really quite doubtful. But if you want to take a risk that he's going to be all right, that's fine. And then Cash, I think he's on 4 yellow cards. So don't go buying him. The next 2 fixtures away to Chelsea and Arsenal, you don't want him for that. If you've got him, okay, you can keep him. Wildcarding or other movements, just free transfers, don't go bringing Cash in. And then second page defenders, so Nkapia, he's injured. He didn't play last night, but apparently it's not too bad. So he's kind of expected to probably play at the weekend, but we don't know for sure. But when Gabriel's back in a week or 2, he's probably going to be benched. So don't go buying him. If I had him, I probably wouldn't be selling him unless I heard he's definitely out. I'd just be playing him. But if you wanted to move him on, you could do, because he's almost certainly not going to be playing in a couple of game weeks anyway, and he may not be playing this game week. Then Cucurella, he's been dumped by a net of 72,000. That's quite a lot. He's quite expensive. The fixtures aren't great, but they will be getting better. But Chalobah's been doing better, and Chalobah's cheaper. And then Sanchez is also a lot cheaper than Cucurella. So Cucurella's not the best way into the Chelsea defence. And also, people are trying to find money to be able to afford Ekitike. And you can get a cheaper defender than Cucurella that's going to be all right. Gvardiol, very good defender, but he's just not particularly highly owned. Been brought in by 31,000, so he is owned by over 10% around my rank. But that's not a huge amount. It's not going to be hurting me. If you've got him, that's great. I wouldn't be buying him just because he's too expensive, but he's a solid pick. So Keane's been brought in by over 101,000 managers at the moment, net. Fixtures are nice, Burnley and Forest. But when Branthwaite is back, the expectation is Keane's not going to be playing, but we don't know when Branthwaite's going to be back. The speculation is he's going to get at least 2 more games, possibly 3 or 4. We don't know that he's going to get benched when Branthwaite's back. but it's looking likely. So he's very cheap, 4.7, reasonable chance of good points the next couple of game weeks, but he is a transfer waiting to happen probably in a few game weeks' time. If you were wildcarding and you had some free transfers saved, you could get him thinking he's just going to be bench fodder for you going forward, or you're going to move him on. Just under normal free transfers, I would not be bringing him in though. But I know a lot of people are. And then Mukulele could be Alderete, a Sunderland defender, largely bench fodder, but sometimes you will be playing them. Like this week at home to Leeds, that's quite a good fixture. But if they just sit on your bench, that's all right as well. Goodmanson's bench fodder, as is Electric Steve. Munoz, he's out for weeks. Get rid of him if you've got him. The reason he's appearing is he's been dumped by a net of 161,000 managers so far this game week. Burn, cracked ribs, he's out for weeks. If you got him, you're selling him. That's the defenders. For the midfielders, Foden, you kind of need to have Foden. He's pretty good, basically. I mean, you don't have to have him, but you're asking for trouble if you don't have him, and he does well. Very good player, should do well over the coming game weeks. He's getting the 90 minutes at the moment. Saka, now he's been sold by 64,000. I think a lot of those were before the Bruno injury. So people wanted to get in Ekitike, and they knew they'd want Gabriel in a few game weeks' time, so they had to free up an Arsenal slot. So in their mind, it made sense to sell Saka to release money to buy Ekitike. But then once Bruno got injured, I think the Saka sales massively dropped off. And there was regret for some managers then thinking, oh, maybe I should get Saka back. So Saka's a good player. If at all possible, I'd say don't go selling him. Semenyo's been brought in by a net of 173,000, which is crazy. He's on 4 yellow cards. So if he gets booked, he's going to miss the next game. He's expected to move club at the beginning of January. There's several clubs interested. Man City, Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea. But I've seen Chelsea maybe not doing it now so much. There has been some interest from Spurs as well. Absolutely don't go buying him, I'd say. If you've got him, that's fine. If you want to sell him, all right. Personally, I've got him. I have no intention of selling him at the moment. But if he goes to one of those big clubs, is he going to play? We don't know. So if he goes to Man City, he's probably going to be a rotation risk. So you may be wanting to sell him on then. Anyway, wouldn't go buying him. He could be missing the next game. He could be missing the game after that because of suspension. After that, he might be in Man City sitting on the bench. If he does play for Man City and gets good minutes, he may well be a good player. But we don't know what the score's going to be yet. And he may not even move. That's not certain. So Wilson, I've said don't buy him. He's been brought in by 169,000. The reason not to buy him, the next 2 games are away. Okay, away to West Ham and Palace, he could get something. But he was injured in the last game week. Yes, it was just a knock, but what if it wasn't just a knock? I would be nervous about buying him. If you've got him, he's fine to keep. Assume he's okay. I wouldn't be risking buying him at the moment, though. Declan Rice, 231,000 net transfers in so far this game week, because he got 11 points last game week. He didn't even score a goal. He's got quite a nice floor. He ticks along. So Saka and Foden are going to more often have big scores than Rice, but also they are more likely to get 2 points, whereas Rice will often not be getting 2 points. He'll be getting 3, 4, 5, 7, 11, something like that. And he's a good player, but if you have him, you kind of have to play him every game week. A lot cheaper than Saka. He was getting sold off, and then after his 11 points, suddenly everyone remembers they like him and they want him again. So some people are moving from Bruno to Rice, but that's obviously not the main move. 592,000 have brought in Rodgers. Away to Chelsea and Arsenal. It's fine if you want to bring him in. He's getting close to the levels where if he has another good game week, and he's doing well at the moment, he's going to be hurting your rank. If you went Bruno to him and that lets you have enough money to buy Ekitike, that's completely reasonable. But apart from that, I personally wouldn't be bringing him in until possibly Forest in 3 game weeks' time. But he is a good player. His price is going to keep going up as well. Bruno Guimaraes, I think he might be on 4 yellows. I should have checked this out, shouldn't I? I think he's on 4. He's been dumped by 59,000 so far. But the upcoming fixtures are fine. Away to Man United. United have got loads of players missing at the moment. Then away to Burnley, then at home to Palace and Leeds. Assuming he doesn't get a suspension, he's a perfectly fine player to have. So Kuna, he's a popular one to replace Bruno with. 223,000 times he's been brought in net. The slight issue with him, online it seems divided, what people are saying. He's likely to be on penalties, so that's nice with Bruno's absence. He's probably going to be very attacking. He's a reasonable chance of getting some goals. But there is a slight feeling of, with Mbeumo out, with Ahmad out, with Bruno out, are United actually going to be a fair bit worse now? But the counter-argument to that was last season he was at Wolves, and the Wolves of last season were arguably worse than United now, so he's probably going to be doing all right. So he's got Newcastle, who've got defensive people missing, then he's got Wolves, Leeds, Burnley. I'd say Kuna is a good choice to be replacing Bruno Fernandes with. Anderson's quite flat down to 14,000. The issue with Anderson, he's only 5.3. He often gets 4 points. It seems that's a good deal, and it is quite a good deal. But he does take up one of your midfield slots. So that's a bit of an issue because you could easily pick 5 midfielders who are going to be a better bet than him. And then Minte, he's down by 46,000. Not much to say about him, really. 6.1 million. He is a good player. If he was always playing 90 minutes and always very attacking, loads of people would have him. So if I was wildcarding this week, I would probably get Foden, Saka, Rice, possibly Kuna as well. Maybe the 4 that are green, I would try and get those in. I think I'd be doing that. I'd be getting those 2 in. And then I'd have up front Haaland and Ekitike. And then probably 4 defenders maybe now. That's if I was wildcarding. Second page of midfielders. So these aren't going to be hurting you. We've got Cherokee on here now because he's been brought in by a net of 110,000. When he plays, he's very good. We've still got the whole Pep Roulette thing. There's not a world at the moment I'd be bringing him in. Too lowly owned. Too scared of. It's a Man City player. But against Forest and Sunderland, he could be doing well there. If you've got him, that's absolutely fine. So Vert, some people are selling Bruno and, for example, Thiago, and they've got enough money to get Vert in midfield and Ekitike up front. Although he's not been he's been rubbish for FPL so far this season, he is no doubt a very, very good player. He could absolutely, over the next 2 game weeks, do really, really well. But he is a huge gamble. He's 8.1 million. If he does really well, he's so lowly owned at the moment, he's not going to hurt your rank, so you don't need to worry about it. But if you wanted a punt, that would be a punt. But it's a bit of a safe punt. Would I go for him? If I wasn't going for popular players, I would seriously consider going for him because it would be fun having a low-owned player that you know is very good. But it's hugely risky, and the way I'm playing this season, I can't go buying him. So with Odegaard back, his minutes are way less. They've got other players coming back. He's been dumped by 184,000 so far this game week. Absolutely fine to get rid of him. Definitely don't go buying him. If you had the money to go Eze to Verts, that would be a bit of fun. I wouldn't do it for a hit. But if I had a free transfer, that would be all right. And then King, he's effectively just bench fodder. As is Miley. I've put him in here because Miley's now cheaper than King. He's 4.4 million. And he's getting some minutes. But if you buy him as a cheap midfielder to sit on your bench, that's absolutely fine. If he has to play for you, that's not a problem. Then we have Doku. He's out at least until next month. Dewsbury-Hall's likely to be out still, so don't go buying him. Szoboszlai suspended, so he'll be back the following game week for Leeds. Then he's got Fulham, so those games are good. So some managers this game week are buying Szoboszlai because it frees up some money. So they're doing Bruno to Szoboszlai and then a cheap forward up to Ekitike, knowing they're going to have Szoboszlai next game week. And with Salah out and Isak out, it's likely that Szoboszlai is going to be the penalty taker for Liverpool. Obviously not this game week against Wolves, but after that. So 6.6 million for a premium player who's going to play every game week at Liverpool, and he's the penalty taker for a few game weeks. That's quite good. He does take up one of your midfield slots, but he's a perfectly reasonable choice. But he's lowly owned. He's not going to hurt your rank. Fernandes, almost certainly going to be out for several game weeks. We don't know for sure, though. We'll know more hopefully come the weekend. And Bremer's off to AFCON. So any of the players in red, definitely sell, even if it's for hits, I'd say. Personally, I'd be selling Eze as well. For the forward, everyone owns Haaland. You're in for a world of pain if you don't own him. You kind of have to own him. He can score against anyone. The only reason not to have Haaland is if you're playing a fun little game where you've chosen not to have Haaland. That's it, really. Thiago's been dumped by 602,000. Now, I understand why. Ekitike is a lot more fun. Thiago's done nothing for a few game weeks. 3 of the next 4 are at home. Bournemouth, Spurs, Sunderland. He could do something in any of those. The other games away to Everton. I've kept hold of Thiago. I could have sold him, but I've decided to keep him, even though he's going to be going down in price. I think he's got a chance of getting some points. If I was wildcarding, I wouldn't have Thiago, but I'm not going to waste a transfer selling a good striker. Somebody has to score the goals for Brentford. It could well be him. Personally, even though he's being mass sold, I think he's fine to keep. If you want to sell him, that's fine. He is going to go down in price, but I think he's a fine player to keep hold of. Then Ekitike, been brought in by 774,000. He is going to be owned probably by more than half the managers at your rank come the weekend. If he gets a goal or better, that is going to be hurting your rank. If you can get him in, you should do. Should you do it for a hit? Possibly. You could do it for a hit if you're thinking you're going to hold him for a while. And he's probably going to be playing good minutes for several game weeks, assuming he doesn't get injured, just because of the current Liverpool situation. So next game week, he could be up to like 60%. Game week after that, if he's scoring, he's going to be 78%. He's going to be like Foden for ownership levels. But if he blanks the next 2 game weeks, he will be mass sold, I think. And then Voltemade, he's been brought in by 140,000 because he got a couple of goals. And the Newcastle fixture run is quite nice. But Visser's back now, so his minutes are probably going to be reduced. Calvert-Lewin's now scored the last 5 game weeks. Only 5.8 million. He's all right to have. He's very lowly owned. He's not going to be hurting your rank at the moment. He's been brought in by a net of 265,000. He's a fun player to have, I guess. But he can do a Darwin Núñez in that he can be in good positions and just keep missing. But the last 5 game weeks, he has been scoring. Maybe that's going to carry on. If you're wildcarding, you could bring him in if that allowed you to have money to do something else. Some managers are going to have Haaland, Ekitike and Calvert-Lewin up front. That's perfectly reasonable, I guess. Then Mateta, he's been dumped by 190,000. And it looks like there's some, I think it's a bit of an injury doubt to do with his knee. His minutes are certainly managed. He's often getting 60 minutes-ish, plus will take a few, give him minus a few. If I had him, I'd probably sell him. There's no world where I'd be buying him just now. Absolutely not worth having. There are other forwards. Any of the forwards on the top line are better than Mateta at the moment, I'd say. João Pedro's been dumped by 75,000. Chelsea are coming up to a nice run of fixtures, but it's not just yet. There are more important forwards to own at the moment. Raul Jimenez, he scored a penalty at the weekend. Not at the weekend, on Monday. He's been dumped by a net of 19,000, but he's a perfectly alright player. If you've got him, he's fine to keep. I wouldn't be buying him, though. Then Kroupi.Jr. is bench fodder, as is Mark Gay. Now, the problem with Mark Gay, if I was wildcarding, I wouldn't buy him. And if I was using transfers, I wouldn't buy Mark Gay, because he plays for Chelsea. And when Chelsea have a good fixture run in a few game weeks' time, you may well want 3 Chelsea players, and Mark Gay's not going to be one of them. So you don't have to go selling him now, but I'd say absolutely don't go buying him. Then the bench order. This is my suggested bench order. You do whatever you like. I take into account the expected points that they're going to score, their ownership levels, and also just what I feel, basically. So for the keepers, if you've got Raya, you're obviously going to play him. After that, my preferred order is Pickford, Roofs, Sanchez, Henderson, Donnarumma, Kelleher, then Dubravka, then Petrovic, then Verbruggen. Regarding the other players, I've put 6 to one side for captaincy. So apart from those, my preferred order is Fernandes. So he is, at time of recording, almost certainly 99.9% not playing. What if he has a cup of coffee, puts his leg up for a couple of days and thinks, oh, I'm feeling better now. It was just a slight, no, I'm all right. there's a very remote chance that he plays. So you should absolutely sell him. But if for whatever reason you're not selling him, you absolutely play him. But he's probably not going to play. Then it'd be Semenyo, Rice, Wilson, Wirtz, Vortamade, Rogers, Timber, Virgil van Dijk, Nkapie, O'Reilly, Gvardiol, Gehi, Raul Jimenez, João Pedro, Cherokee. I said that's silly, didn't I? Calvert-Lewin, Chalobah, Senesi, Keane, Cucurella, Bruno Guimaraes, Mateta, Eze, Anderson, Richards, Mukulele, Wiley, Cash, Anderson, Goodmanson, Van de Ven, Minte, Electric Steve, King, Welbeck, Mark Gahey, Kroupi.Jr, and then not playing we have Doku, Munoz, Byrne, Dewsbury-Hall, Sabozlai. I've not even been drinking yet. And Bremo. Captaincy, Haaland, very good choice. Probably going to be the most captained away to Forest. If he does well or outscores your captain and you don't captain him, that is going to hurt your rank because he's so highly owned. But he's a good one to wear the old mule hat. After that, Ekitike is also a good choice at home to Wolves. Probably on penalties, but we don't know for sure. Good player, could get a very good score this game week. But if you captain Ekitike and Haaland outscores him, that's going to be hurting your rank. So, personally, I'd be going with Haaland, but either of those are fine. There are other players, of course. You could go Foden. He's been doing well recently. Saka could be a good choice at home to Brighton. Thiago, yes, he's blanked the last several game weeks at home to Bournemouth. He could actually still be all right. And I like to show 6. That's why I'm putting these in there. And then Kuna, home to Newcastle. Newcastle got defensive players missing. He could be all right. So any of these as captain, any as vice captain. Don't choose 2 from the same match. So don't choose Haaland and Foden, just in case the match gets postponed for whatever random reason. And there we have it, my thoughts for the popular players for Game Week 18. It looks like there's a good number of managers are taking hits. So it's all right to take hits this game week if you think they're justified and you're going to be keeping the players for the next few game weeks. You're probably going to get your points back, or you've got a good chance of getting your points back. So don't fret too much. Even if it means a red arrow this week because of your hits, it might be long term. It's worth doing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a nice few days off. Cheers. Bye.